Silent Witness continues in 15 minutes on BBC One after the news.
Meet Alex and his wife Lizzie.
Forasmuch as it has pleased Almighty God.
Babe, isn't looking dug straight.
Stephanie Cole. And Richard Wilson.
Sometimes I think God has a really cracking sense of humour.
Life as We Know It, a brand new comedy series, starts next Sunday at 9 on BBC One.
23 Uhr. Nach und nach machen die DDR-Grenze alle Übergänge zwischen Ost- und Westberlin auf. Geschlossen.
Ich bin da noch mal weg, wa?
Ost- und Weststadt noch lange nicht.
Dass die Kriege sich auf die Stadt.
The news here on BBC One now with George Alagaya. It's 10 o'clock.
Telling tales, Portillo's people are accused of stabbing William Hague in the back. The Tories' former spin doctor sparks off a new leadership row. A step closer to Star Wars, the Americans test their new defence missile. Out of control, out of the race, now Coulthard's virtually out of the championship. Good evening. Just 48 hours before Tory MPs select the two candidates for the party leadership, Michael Portillo's hopes of high office have hit another stumbling block. In a secretly taped election video diary, the party's former press chief, Amanda Platel, accuses his supporters of betraying William Hague during the election campaign. Mr. Portillo's people have hit back. One described the diary as absolutely fundamentally the opposite of the truth. Here's our political correspondent, Gita Hari.
Yeah, hi, it's Amanda. Is he there?
She was closer than almost anyone else to William Hague and fiercely loyal. It's a quality she found lacking in others. And in her video diary tonight, she claimed journalists tipped her off about plots to undermine him.
They'll phone up and say, you know, I had a phone call last night from Portillo's people who say, you know, Hague's wrong, we should be campaigning on the public services, but we don't want to rock the boat.
She offered no hard evidence, but just days before the general election, Amanda Platel believed that Michael Portillo's supporters were more focused on succeeding William Hague than helping him.
We're fighting so hard at the moment, and to find that all they're concentrating on is how they're going to pull it down. It's a bit shocking.
Michael Portillo insists he was loyal, and his friends are furious that Amanda Platel has used her privileged position to suggest otherwise.
I think Amanda Platel is about the enrichment of Amanda Platel and no doubt the enhancement of her reputation. I think what she did was not only disloyal, as William Hague himself has made clear, but simply wrong.
No one doubts Ian Duncan Smith's loyalty, but could a man with no ministerial experience lead his party to power?
It's not that long ago that the country chose a Prime Minister who had no ministerial experience, one Tony Blair. We're now told by some in my party that we should learn from Tony Blair. Well, that's what I'm doing.
Ken Clarke's main handicap in this race remains his views on Europe. Just a handful of votes in a Commons committee room this Tuesday will determine which two candidates go forward to a ballot of ordinary Conservatives this summer. MPs might not be that surprised by what Amanda Platel has said, but if their local parties react badly to it, her intervention could prove critical. Gita Hari, BBC News, Westminster.
The Americans are calling their test of a missile defense system a success. The Russians say it's a looming threat to nuclear disarmament. A dummy warhead was launched from California this morning and was tracked and destroyed by an interceptor missile fired from the Pacific.
2, 1,
Mark. The most controversial missile in the world took off from a base on a tiny Pacific atoll on its way to a collision deep in space. The target, a Minuteman intercontinental missile, was already in the air, heading from California west over the Pacific. This collision cost $100 million, but every buck was worth it to the Pentagon after 2 failures and 1 ambiguous test. Despite almost universal international disapproval and the view of many analysts that the system will never work, the Bush administration wants a missile defense shield.
We believe we have a successful test in all aspects at this time. We hit pretty accurately based on the telemetry that was lost. However, we will have to know just how accurately through a lot of analysis, and that'll take weeks.
In a real attack, as it circled the world, a hostile missile would be tracked electronically by monitoring stations, probably including Menwith Hill in Yorkshire. The intercepting missile could be launched either from the US or from a warship, and it would be guided onto the target, trying to avoid decoy missiles on the way, destroying the enemy missile in space. China and Russia have both reacted angrily to the new program. The Chinese President Jiang Zemin has just landed in Moscow for a routine visit. They both see America's plans as contrary to the 1972 anti-ballistic missile treaty. But the Americans are pressing ahead. To them, the treaty is ancient history. David Loyne, BBC News.
Police in Australia are searching for a British tourist who went missing after he and his girlfriend were attacked on a remote road near Alice Springs. The couple had stopped to help a man who said his car had broken down.
It's now more than 24 hours since a British couple were attacked on the isolated Stewart Highway, about 150 miles north of Alice Springs. Their camper van was found in bushland not far away, apparently abandoned. The only witness to what happened is a 27-year-old British woman who is enjoying a round-the-world holiday with her boyfriend. She told the police that at dusk on Saturday evening, a man in a 4-wheel drive vehicle travelling behind them indicated they should pull over. Her boyfriend got out and went to the rear of the van, and she then heard what she believes to be a gunshot.
We've already issued a warning to say that we consider the person involved in this incident is armed and dangerous. The only description we have available at the moment is he is a Caucasian male with a moustache.
Roadblocks have been established throughout the Northern Territory, but despite a massive search, there is no sign of either the gunman or the missing British tourist. Dominic Hughes, BBC News, Sydney.
The first talks in 2 years between the leaders of India and Pakistan have been described as cordial and constructive. Indian Prime Minister Vajpayee and Pakistan's President Musharraf met in the Indian city of Agra with the disputed territory of Kashmir high on the agenda. More talks will be held tomorrow. One of the world's leading medical charities is considering buying the Millennium Dome. The Wellcome Trust is said to want to use the building as a research centre. The government says it's looking at offers from several possible buyers. And Helios, a solar-powered aircraft with a 247-foot wingspan, has undergone a successful test flight in Hawaii. The remote-controlled plane, part built by NASA, climbed to 76,000 feet during the 10-hour flight. You'd normally find acetone in paint stripper, ammonia in floor cleaners and cadmium in car batteries. But if you're a smoker, you could also be inhaling a bit of all three when you have a puff. Now, tobacco firms have been given 6 months to remove potentially harmful additives from their products.
Lighting up with Sunday lunch, but many smokers are unaware that their cigarettes could contain a cocktail of substances that are also found in floor cleaner or weed killer.
Didn't know they was in there though. It wouldn't put me off. I've been smoking too long.
If I knew it was that, I wouldn't have started. Probably.
Tobacco companies are allowed to use 600 different additives, including arsenic and ammonia. But the government says it's time some were axed.
We've called for expert advice now on the additives in cigarettes that are potentially most harmful and also on the cancer-causing chemicals in tobacco smoke. We will be expecting the industry to take more action in this area, and if they don't, we'll look to legal powers we have.
The threat of legal action surprises the tobacco industry, which says it's willing to comply.
We've always been very open, we've always talked to government, and indeed we're unique in Europe in publishing the list of those 600 additives. Obviously, they're not all used, some disappear, and we're willing to talk again if she wants some of them removed from that list.
Powerful adverts featuring cancer victims are part of the ongoing campaign against smoking, but the government warns it's now upping the ante. Christine Stewart, BBC News.
An investigation's underway after a man was killed in a mid-air collision involving 3 light aircraft near Evesham in Worcestershire. The man was piloting a glider that collided with a plane towing a second glider. An eyewitness said he'd tried to bail out, but his parachute failed to open. The plane and the second glider both landed safely. In South Korea, the worst monsoon rains for nearly 40 years have killed at least 33 people and left another 14 missing. The capital, Seoul, has seen 12 inches of rain in 2 days. There have been landslides and more than 20,000 homes have been flooded out.
Just a month after the Korean peninsula's worst drought in 90 years, some of the heaviest storms in recent memory have swept across the region. The most serious damage is in the South Korean capital, Seoul. Thousands of homes have been destroyed, cars left piled up where the floodwater dumped them. This is the subway system in Seoul, brought to a standstill as the heaviest rainfall for more than 3 decades flooded stations and tunnels. Some buildings have collapsed, others have been buried by landslides, leaving rescue workers searching for survivors. Emergency shelters are being set up to house those displaced by the floods. Several thousand police, firefighters and government officials have been sent to the worst affected areas. Though the floodwater has been receding in places, the storms are now moving further south, and Korean forecasters expect more heavy rain tomorrow. Daniel Bircher, BBC News.
And now with news of the British Grand Prix and all the rest of the day's sport, here's Mary Rhodes.
Thanks very much, George. David Coulthard's hopes of winning his 3rd successive British Grand Prix ended early at Silverstone when he pulled out on the 4th lap. The race was won by Mika Häkkinen, who beat the Ferrari pair Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello.
If for no other reason, and there wasn't one really, this British Grand Prix was always going to be memorable as the last with veteran commentator Murray Walker at the microphone. He didn't disappoint. As the drivers prepared to slip their clutches, Murray delivered one more slip of the tongue.
3 lights, 4 lights, 5 laps.
Pardon? Although the start seemed clean, in fact disaster had struck Britain's David Coulthard. Replays showed his McLaren had been hit by Jarno Trulli's Jordan. The damage caused led to him spinning off 4 laps later. His race over, his world title hopes effectively reduced to dust. Shortly after, his teammate Mika Häkkinen raised the biggest cheer of the day as he scooted past World Championship leader Michael Schumacher. But it soon became clear the defending title holder was happy with 2nd place, the race little more to him than a Sunday afternoon spin. Häkkinen duly came home a full half-minute clear of the field, but more significant was the comfortable 2nd place taken by Michael Schumacher. It gives him a nigh-on unassailable 37-point lead. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
England have recalled Mark Ramprakash and Graham Thorpe into the squad for the 2nd Ashes test against Australia, which starts at Lord's on Thursday. Thorpe hasn't played for almost 6 weeks because of a calf injury and will need to pass a fitness test. Yorkshire's fast bowler Chris Silverwood has also been recalled. Mark Richardson has come back from his drug suspension by claiming a place in the World Championships next month in Canada. He won the 400 metres at the 3A's meeting in Birmingham ahead of Ewan Thomas, who failed to make a qualifying time for Edmonton. The South African Retief Goosen has won the Scottish Open at Loch Lomond. He led from start to finish to beat Denmark's Thomas Bjorn by 3 shots.
Retief Goosen is playing with the confidence of a man who won his first major title only a month ago. The new US Open champion began the final round at Loch Lomond with a 3-shot lead and quickly set about extending it. This early birdie taking him 6 shots clear. He was helped by the failure of anyone to emerge from the pack.
Full bore. Get in there, you beauty.
John Daly did his best to break free with some monster hitting, endangering those ahead of him.
Just watch the people on the green in front of him. Hello.
Barry Lane also had his moments with this eagle at the 3rd to finish on the heels of the leaders. Goosen had been safe rather than spectacular all week, and he wasn't going to blow it now, although he was probably pleased he had a few shots in hand at the 18th. But he'd had his name on the winner's cheque a long way from home, and will be eyeing an even bigger prize at the Open next weekend. Rob Watson, BBC News.
And finally, Frankie Dettori won the Irish Oaks at the Curragh on Lailani for trainer Ed Dunlop, who also trained the second-place horse, Mojust. And that's the sport. George.
Thank you, Mary. Now let's get the latest on the weather with Peter Cockcroft. Peter, it's St Swithin's Day. Is that 40 days of good or bad weather?
Of course, that's the big question, isn't it, George, this St Swithin's Day? Will the next 40 days bring us rain? Will they bring us fine weather? Well, it's been mixed today, so according to St Swithin, we should have some mixed weather for the next 40 days. Well, I think the next week's certainly going to be quite mixed overnight tonight. We'll keep some showers going in northeast England and eastern Scotland. Elsewhere, clear skies, a little bit of mist and fog, and a very chilly night indeed for July. Temperatures low enough in parts of Scotland, down into northern England, across the Midlands into Wales and southern England, low enough for a touch of frost on the garden. Means to say this is going to be quite a bright start, if a somewhat chilly start today. Still those showers there in northeast England and eastern Scotland. They're going to pep up by the afternoon, by which time there'll be a few showers elsewhere, but they are going to be isolated and there'll be a good deal of dry and sunny weather. That is before the next batch of wet and windy weather pushes into the far southwest. But before that arrives, we should see the temperature in the Channel Islands pick up to around about 23 degrees. The reason for the wet weather, it's this area of low pressure that's going to be with us during the middle part of the week. Perhaps enough rain to give some flooding in some places, but we'll keep you updated on that. By Thursday, the low should be taking its rain away into the North Sea, and then by Friday, any showers should become few and far between. That's before the next batch of wet weather comes in from the west. We'll keep you updated.